So, hello, welcome. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. My name is Dora. I'm one of the organizers of Qesher, and the other one is Sebastian. You can find us here both under the name Qesher. And we just want to say a few words about this project, Qesher. I know many of you have been to our talks and are regulars at our talks or members. But if you're joining us for the first time, we just want to let you know very briefly about what we do. We started this project 5.5 years ago, and our aim is to introduce different Jewish communities, heritage, history, culture, and present day situation around the world. So we visit different cities and different countries and we learn about their Jewish heritage. We also have a book club series, and this is what you are joining today. In this book club series, we aim to introduce Jewish authors who have, or authors who write books in Jewish themes related to different Jewish identities, Jewish diaspora, Jewish life around the world, or just how different Jews live in different places. Today, we are very happy to welcome Rebecca Wolf, who is a former journalist whose fiction and essays have appeared in many publications, including Upper City and Tablet. She's a volunteer writing tutor for Pan America's prison writing program, and she lived in Jerusalem as a foreign student before attending Barnard College. She lives in New Jersey with her family. And her first novel, Alive and Beating, is the one that is going to be discussed today. She's going to do a brief introduction about her book, and then we'll do a little interview with me. I'll ask her to share a bit about the book with us. And after that, we'll open it up for Q&A. So anyone who's gotten interested in the topics or has a question, you can put your questions in the chat and we'll try to read as many as possible. So I'll pass the word now to Rebecca to please tell us a bit about your book in general before we start the interview part.
Okay, thank you so much, Dora and Sebastian, for inviting me here today, and thank you to all of you for showing up to listen. As a debut author, it's especially heartwarming to receive this amazing support from readers like you. My book, Alive and Beating, follows 6 people from diverse backgrounds and neighborhoods in Jerusalem, all of whom are awaiting organ transplants on the day that will forever change their lives. My book is inspired by the true story of my friend, Elisa Flato. Elisa and I met on the first day of high school when we were assigned lockers next to each other. She was a wonderful person to see first thing in the morning, especially for a grumpy teenager like me. Elisa greeted me with a big smile every day. She had an infectious laugh and deep dimples, and she didn't take herself too seriously. Elisa did take her Judaism seriously, however, and she decided to take a semester off during her junior year of college and go to Israel to study in a religious seminary. That's Elisa right there wearing the green. A few days before Passover in April 1995, Elisa was on the way to a beach resort in Gush Katif, which was then controlled by Israel, when a suicide bomber rammed his truck into her bus. She was mortally wounded with a critical brain injury, but her body remained intact, a perfect candidate to be an organ donor. Her father flew in from New Jersey, and together with his family and many rabbinic authorities, they made the then groundbreaking and heroic decision to donate Elisa's organs. Elisa was the first American tourist to be killed by an act of terror in Israel, and one of the first, if not the first, Orthodox Jewish organ donor, so her death was widely publicized. I had been studying in London that semester, and I arrived in Israel in time to watch Elisa's coffin get loaded into the cargo hold of the plane that would take her back to her native New Jersey for her funeral and burial. While that scene is imprinted in my brain, it was the news conference the next day that had had the biggest impact. Then Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin praising Elisa's family's heroic act and proclaiming, "Elisa's heart is alive and beating here in Jerusalem." Elisa stayed at the top of my mind, but as a 20-year-old college student, I was thinking of her just as a friend that I was mourning, not as a story to be told. I had planned to become a journalist, hopefully a war correspondent, not a fiction writer. While I was in Barnard College, I worked as both a reporter and an editor on the Columbia Daily Spectator, and during my semester abroad, I was an intern reporter for United Press International. I majored in political science with a concentration in terrorism, and in London, I studied in the War Studies Department of King's College. But it turns out that being a war correspondent wasn't such a great job for a young, newly married Orthodox Jewish woman. So after college graduation, I got a job on Wall Street instead, working as a financial reporter for Dow Jones Newswires, which is the wire service of the Wall Street Journal. Once I became a mother, I decided to stay home with my kids, and the only writing I did was some light freelance work, mostly about parenting and Jewish topics. About 10 years ago, with my children all in school full-time, I started thinking about writing a book, and that book had to be about Elisa. My book is a tribute to Elisa, but ultimately I decided to write a fiction novel rather than tell her true story, so that I could create a diverse cast of characters. It was important to me that my book carry a message of shared humanity, and so I needed organ transplants from all walks of life. I have Leah, a Hasidic young woman, Yael, a daughter of Holocaust survivors, Hoda, a Palestinian hairdresser, David, an Iraqi restaurant owner, Severin, a Catholic priest, and Youssef and Yosef, two teenage boys, one a Muslim and one a Jew. Although he is not one of the main protagonists, my favorite character is actually someone named Srulik, who is the taxi driver who weaves his way through all of the different stories. Srulik is inspired by my cousin, who is also named Srulik. He just died in May at age 100. He was a Holocaust survivor who lost all of his family in the war except for his sister and two cousins, one of whom was my grandmother. He was liberated from the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp and ultimately ended up in Israel, where he was given a gun upon arrival and told to fight in the War of Independence. He was a true pioneer of Israel and a believer in mankind. Despite all the horrors he suffered, he genuinely liked people and gave everyone a chance. I really enjoy the research process of the book. I'm a librarian's daughter and I love to read, and these characters forced me to read books that I might never otherwise have looked at, such as books written strictly from a Palestinian perspective. I also read lots of so-called death memoirs, such as Paul Kalanithy's When Breath Becomes Air, and Joy Yip Williams' The Unwinding of the Miracle, among many others, to try to understand the perspective of someone with a terminal illness. I spoke to many doctors, interviewed friends of mine who suffer from chronic illnesses, and watched lots of YouTube videos. I knew some of the Jerusalem neighborhoods that I wrote about in my book, but others like Beit Hanina I have never been to, so I relied on books, videos, and Google Earth to help me. One of the biggest challenges for me was keeping the pacing of the story correct through all the chapters. I wanted the whole book to take place within 36 hours to underscore the crucial time constraints of an actual organ donation. There were lots of times that I finished writing and I thought I did a decent job, but then I realized that a scene that was set at night really had to be in the morning to correspond to other stories, so I had to scratch the whole thing and go back to the drawing board. My favorite chapter to write was my pancreas chapter, which is about Severin, the Catholic priest. I enjoy the challenge of creating someone who is the complete opposite of me. I am not a man, nor a priest, nor a Catholic. I also like that Severin is such a positive person despite having a very hard life. He is my only character whose organ transplant is not life-dependent, meaning he will not necessarily die if he doesn't get one immediately, so it was less stressful writing his story. The story of Youssef and Yosef, the two teenage boys in the heart chapter, was the hardest for me to write. As a mother, it's difficult to imagine children so seriously ill, and writing their dialogue as kids facing their own mortality was very upsetting to me. Also, because I set the story in the hospital, where there was more medical jargon and technical details than in the other chapters. I'm very lucky that my brother-in-law is a pediatric cardiologist, and he helped me make sure I was accurate in my writing. While that chapter is kind of heart-wrenching, it's the only one that was published as a standalone story in a literary magazine, and it seems to resonate the most with my readers. So if it's okay, I'd like to read a short excerpt from the heart chapter, just the first 2 pages. I saw her boobs when she leaned over, says Youssef al-Najjar. He leans back against his pillow, closes his eyes, and smiles. It was a good day. Why do you always get all the luck? Asked Yosef Peretz from the bed across the room without looking up from playing Candy Crush on his phone. It's a Sunday evening in early April, and visiting hours are over for the day. No pretty girls ever come to visit me. I'm a babe magnet, what can I say? Yeah, right, she was probably your cousin or something. Yusuf laughs. She was actually, but who cares? I still saw boobs. Yosef laughs too, first just a chuckle, but then he dissolves into a fit of hysterical giggles. The jerking of his chest sets off one of the alarms, and a nurse runs in to check the monitors. Yo-yos, take it easy, she says. Don't make me run in here 100 times a day. Youssef and Yosef are known as the yo-yos on the pediatric cardiology floor of Hadassah Medical Center. They've been there for a while, Youssef nearly a month and Yosef almost 3, while they wait for heart transplants. Their wide blue room is sectioned off in the middle with yellow curtains that can separate the area into 2 rooms, but now the boys like to be together, so they keep them open. One wall is windowed with views of the green pine and cypress trees in the Jerusalem forest outside. The boys' beds are positioned opposite each other, and the walls are painted with aquarium murals to try to camouflage the many medical devices and machines. A giant red coral reef is painted just above Yosef's head, and Yusuf teases him that he looks like an underwater unicorn. One is an Arab, Yusuf, and the other is a Jew, Yosef, but both are teenage boys from Jerusalem, and they are so close in age, 15 and 16 respectively, and appearance that they might be brothers. The regular hospital staff is able to differentiate between the yo-yos, but when first meeting them, most people need to look at their charts to tell them apart. They both have dark hair, sparse facial fuzz, and naturally dark skin, although now they appear more ashen from their advanced cardiac diseases. Yosef crumples a sheet to his mouth to stifle his laughter. It's ironic that as he and Yusuf get weaker, their friendship gets stronger. Their friends' visits have become much less frequent, and even their families can't dedicate all day to sitting with them in the hospital. A lot of the time, it's just the yo-yos. Those flowers your cousin brought are really strong, says Yosef. I can smell them even through the sheet. The purple hyacinths are in an empty water bottle on the table next to Yusuf. I like them, he says. It reminds me that it's spring. I hate that we don't feel the weather in here. When they feel up to it, the boys are wheeled to the hospital garden for a few minutes each day. For early April, the weather has been unseasonably warm, and the blooming flowers and budding trees are a stark contrast to the cold linoleum and antiseptic smell of the hospital. Yusuf picks up his phone and starts watching a YouTube video about basketball dunks. Yosef stares into space. How do you think he'll die? Asks Yosef. What? Who? Yusuf doesn't put down his phone. The person whose heart you'll get. Why do you always say it's me? Yusuf sounds exasperated. He looks up from his game. You've been sicker longer than me. I bet you'll get one first. I may be too sick already, says Yosef sadly. They're not going to waste a heart on me if they think it won't last. You're not too sick, Yusuf says. Your liver function was better than mine tonight. Well, whatever. How do you think the donor is going to die? For sure, a motorcycle accident. Don't they call them donor cycles? It depends how he crashes. He might be too messed up. It matters how he falls, like if his skull is all bashed in, but his body is okay. Yeah, Yosef is quiet. It's weird, isn't it, wishing that someone will die? Well, we're not killing the guy, says Yusuf, and in a way, a little part of the donor stays alive. Well, that creeps me out even more, I think. What if he was an asshole? Will I suddenly turn into one too? Suddenly, laughs Yusuf. Come on, bro, it doesn't work that way. It might, insists Yosef. I heard of someone who hated tomatoes and then got a new heart and now he loves tomatoes. What if we get a girl's heart and then we love boys so we turn gay? Silence. Then both boys erupt with laughter. Nah, not gonna happen. Not with our boob obsessions. I'll admit that it's been difficult to feel a shared humanity since October 7th, and especially recently as we've heard of the hostages' ordeals and seen the rampant anti-Semitism across the world. But I believe our only chance for a peaceful world is if we all tried to push aside our pain and see each other as human beings, and I hope that will be a message readers take away from my book. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for
Sure.
introducing us to the story and for reading a little bit from it. So what I thought reading your book is that one of the fascinating aspects is both the setting and the characters that you introduce. And so first I want to ask you why you chose Jerusalem as a location.
So I think the very simple answer is that it's the place I'm most comfortable with and most familiar with in Israel. I lived there during a gap year between high school and college, and I try to go to Israel at least once a year, and usually that's where I stay. It's in Jerusalem. So I would say that would be the first reason. And the second is that I really feel that Jerusalem is sort of a microcosm for the whole country, and maybe you could even say the whole world, and that within, a few blocks, it changes from Muslim to Christian to Jewish. And I like that everyone has to live together and are pretty much separated by only 1 degree of separation.
Thank you. Um, and so you spoke a little bit about this, how you researched and how you introduced different people, but I just want to emphasize that to the audience that really these characters are very lively, and you really, when once you start reading their stories, they really become people that you feel like you know, and you really empathize with their story and with their background. And what fascinated me is that you really adopt their way of thinking. Like, different people from different cultures have very different priorities, very different ways of tackling the fact that they have a chronic disease. So I just wanted to ask you if you want to share a bit more, maybe even some specific characters, how you research them. Are they based on real characters, or how did these characters come to life?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you, because anytime someone says they feel like they're alive, there's no better compliment to a writer than for someone to care about your characters. So thank you. I appreciate it. Some of the characters, besides my cousin Srilik, were inspired by real people. The Palestinian hairdresser, for example, is inspired by a woman in our community in New Jersey where I live. She's not Palestinian, she's an Egyptian Muslim, but she works in the barber shop that most of the kids go to. And when my son was a little boy and I used to take him there, we would talk all the time how we were so similar. She's such a religious woman. She covers everything. I mean, in a lot of ways, she seemed so much more religious than me. And we just kept saying to each other, we can get along. Like, why can't everybody get along? And so I tried to base my character on her because she is someone that really made me feel like it could happen someday. In terms of a lot of the other characters, they're really figments of my imagination, but little stories are taken from the headlines. I think I'm always going to be a journalist more than a fiction writer, and I'm always reading everything. So a lot of the stories are true. I'll give you a few examples. There's a story in my chapter of The Liver about a girl soldier who is a shooting instructor. And there's an accident on her base when she's teaching the trainees, and someone shoots up a whole bunch of people by mistake. That's true. I took it from one of the Israeli newspapers that I read. In my first chapter, we talk about a matchmaking group for people that have special needs, but not even special needs, even if you once had a limp and you're better. So that's a real group. It exists today. And I think I just tried, whenever I was reading and something seemed interesting, I kind of filed it in the back of my head and said, let me try to fit this in somewhere. And then I just was very appreciative of all of my friends and family that were willing to lend all their information to me. I have a lot of friends, unfortunately, who have diabetes. They gave me a lot of really good information, more than just medical, little things like hiding jelly beans in the bedroom drawer for when you need a quick sugar. I wouldn't have known that from reading medical literature. That's something that only a patient could tell me. And like I said before, I have a brother-in-law who's a pediatric cardiologist. I have friends who are nephrologists, and it was very lucky for me to be able to get a lot of the information from friends.
Yeah, it's probably that's why the characters feel so real, because they do have these real elements. And the other interesting thing I think throughout the book is how much they are connected. And I mean, you mentioned Srulik, who is the taxi driver, that he's based on a real person. But I think also in an abstract way, if you could speak about what this connectedness means to you, why you decided to connect them in so many storylines. And I mean, obviously, there's the bigger picture that they're all connected because they have this chronic disease that they live with, and the pain of that, but also through the characters. So I just was wondering about the connectedness.
Well, and then they're also hopefully all connected because they're all going to receive organs from the same person. Um, I think I probably went backwards, meaning I thought of that, like, wow, all these people who are so radically different, they're close enough that they're going to be able to all share body parts in essence from the same person. And it really makes you think that if we only focused on that, and I know it sounds hokey and very idealistic, but I genuinely believe it, that if we focused on how similar we are instead of how different we are, I think the world would be a different place. And, one of the transplant surgeons that I spoke to, he wrote a blurb on the back of my book, and it's really true. He says, when I get an organ, the organ doesn't know who it's going to. It doesn't know what color skin the person has, what religion they practice, what's that person's political views. It doesn't really matter. The organ's going to work because the human body is made the same way for everybody. So I think that was my primary goal was to show that we are actually all connected. But then it went to different levels, meaning like, as you say, connectedness within the medical world. I think anyone who's ever been in the hospital or even maybe in the waiting room at a doctor's office, there's like a camaraderie there because you're like, oh, we're both, as someone that I know that, let's say, had to go to radiation every day for a month. They saw the same people in the waiting room every day waiting to have radiation, and you kind of feel like you're in this together. Even though you don't know each other, you're not friends, but you're seeing each other every day waiting for this. And I think that especially when you're fighting a serious illness, those people who are fighting it with you are very much feeling like a part of your team. And then lastly, it was sort of what I was saying at the very beginning with Jerusalem being a small place. And frankly, the world, I mean, definitely within the Jewish world, probably if we sat down, we would find someone that we both know, even though you live in Budapest and I live in New Jersey, because it's a small world. So I think I like to think about that a lot, that we're much more connected than we think we are.
Yeah, and you speak about organ donation, and I think it's a very interesting topic because it's not, like you mentioned in the beginning, it was something new in the Jewish world. So can you share a bit about like what organ donation used to mean in Jewish religion, and what is the evolution of how we regard organ donation in Jewish religion or in Israel? So that would be, I think, very interesting to know this aspect of the story.
Sure, I will give you a few little highlights. So the first living kidney transplant was done in Israel in 1964, and in 1968 was the first transplant from a cadaver. But there was actually no law in Israel establishing the criteria for brain death, and in this case, it's called respiratory brain death until 2008. So it's actually been not that long. And when you think about it, my friend died in 1995. So even though that was huge, she was in every newspaper, it took a long time for that to turn into a law. And one of the reasons they had to make a law was that there was actually a lot of organ tourism, they call it, of people from Israel going to other countries, paying illegally for organs. And Israel is a complicated place because it's not only Judaism that has this prohibition of desecrating the body, Islam is the same way. And so everyone had to come to some sort of consensus that this is not actually a desecration of the body, but this is honoring the body by allowing someone else to live. So respiratory brain death is established usually by like an apnea test and a few other neurologic tests that I don't know all the technical details, but basically it's like a three-part test that has to be done 3 times over the course of a number of hours. And then the person is declared brain dead and they can become a donor. But as with everything in the religious world, I'm sure you're going to find lots of rabbis that disagree. And I would never claim to say this is the official rule in Judaism, but I will say that it has been much more commonly accepted. And Israel is still not so high in terms of being a country leading in organ donation in terms of cadavers, although they've gotten a lot better. They went from the single digits to at least in the double digits. But what they are now, a leading country, and I think they're actually third in the world, is living organ donation. So, like, you can give your kidney and be completely fine, and Israel now leads that. So we'll see. And they've also there's a few different systems in place now where if you are a registered organ donor in Israel and then you need an organ transplant, you are bumped up higher on the list if you had been registered already. So they try to do things to incentivize people.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think it's very useful to know because there might be so many misconceptions or not knowing what is the situation in Israel, and I think it's very valuable to have a bit of an overview of that. And my next question was going to be, that this, all this that you describe is very universal. It's true, you know, in a sense, just like before we started the call, you mentioned someone saying that the story could have been placed in another country, and it's in a way it's true because it's totally universal. It goes down to the most basic human qualities and basically my question is, how could you write something so personal and so universal at the same time? And how did that feel writing it?
Um, that's a good question. I don't know if I've ever thought about it that way. Um, I guess I took the personal out of it by making it a fiction story. And that is a little bit why I did that. I didn't really feel like it was my place to write my friend's story. Um, but I did want to honor her because she had a huge impact on the world. So, it was really hard to write the scene of the bombing because that is the scene that is the most factual, the most closely related to her, and that she also, barely had a scratch on her body, just her brain stem was severed, and that's what I have happen to my character. So that was hard, but I think ultimately writing this book was cathartic because I everyone here now on this Zoom just heard my friend's name and is gonna just for 1 second even think, oh, wow, this woman did something. And it's been 30 years. So I feel like that brings a little bit of comfort to her family. And they've told me that they have been comforted. And then to answer the other part of your question, like, how does it become universal? Well, that was the goal of this book, is to show that this is so universal. We are all really the same. And it's so hard. I mean, I started writing this book, probably now it's almost 8 years ago, and things have only gotten worse. And it's really sad. And I want to be hopeful for the future of the world. And so to me, this book is important to be out here. I wish that I had had, an easier time getting it out because to me it's so timely and it's a good reminder to everyone that we really have to go back to what is the essence of a person. And if we do that, we have a better chance of getting along.
And I think one of the probably the hardest part of this equality is that is especially like you said in the light of the last 2 years is the Muslim-Jewish relations. And you speak about that a lot in very different ways. So I was just curious. I mean, you mentioned your friend, the hairdresser,
Yeah.
or I'm not sure if she was a hairdresser, but if the
Yeah,
hairdresser is based on. But also in the other stories, there is a lot of very delicate Muslim-Jewish relationships. So
yeah,
could
I
you
wish
talk
I could
about
say
that?
that I had more Muslim friends than that hairdresser, but unfortunately I don't. Um, and actually, in the town that I live in, I had thought we had a pretty good situation here. We used to have a Muslim mayor. We have a giant mosque in town, and we also have a big Christian population. I thought, oh, I live in this amazing multicultural town, and this is so wonderful. And it really fell apart after October 7th, and it's been so disappointing and sad to me because I guess I wasn't seeing the truth, and I thought I was, but we're not friends, and that's just sad. And now, hopefully the war will be over and we can move on, but it's very hard to repair relationships when there's been so much hatred and so many terrible things said to each other. So, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I've been asked a bunch of times on these book talks, how do Muslims feel about your book? I don't know if anyone has read it. So if someone has read it, they haven't been in touch with me. As I've had a primarily Jewish readership. I have had a bunch of non-Jews read it, especially, bookstagrammers, people on Instagram. But as far as I know, no Muslims.
Because I thought what was interesting that you mentioned earlier, that you actually even read books from Palestinian points of view, and I think that that really comes across. So it really feels authentic. I mean, I'm not a Muslim either to judge, but from an outside point of view, it felt like that they are not just put into little boxes, but they are also real human beings, and they
Correct.
are really connecting. And some better, some
Yeah.
have their own prejudice, and some overcome them, and some don't. But I think that that was a very
Right.
human
I
also.
tried my best. I watched even millions of videos of just how to put on a hijab so that I could make sure to get like the swish right when I was writing it. And also to read a lot about their religious customs because they are a religion that if you are very observant, it takes up a lot of your day. There's a lot of prayer, a lot of things to do. And I wanted to try to be very respectful of that. And I wanted to also be very sympathetic. But it's a delicate dance. And I would never lie about who I am. And I am Jewish and I'm a Zionist. So if someone is going to talk to me about that in a conversation, especially someone who is Muslim or someone who is Palestinian, it might get tricky.
And I want to finish up with the last question from my part, and then we'll go into the audience questions. So everyone is welcome to write in the chat. You shared with us last week when we had a short meeting that you were in Israel both on October 7th, 2023, as well as just now when the hostages were released, and that really impacted you. And also, can you share a bit of this impact and also how that relates to your book?
Yes. So October 7th, there's probably not that much to say about because everyone unfortunately has heard about it and seen the videos. My family was safe. We were in Jerusalem, but we were obviously scared and, just watching from the balcony, all the soldiers running to get into their cars. I have three nephews that were in the army. Um, in fact, that day, one of my daughter's close friends, her husband was killed as a soldier. He was one of the first to go down and to fight in the kibbutzim. So it was a crazy time to be there. And it felt really lucky to be there now when the hostages came back because it was at least a little bit of like a healing circle. Although it was very interesting to me to see everyone from America kept saying, "Oh, it must be so incredible, it's such a party." And I said, "No, and especially maybe not in Jerusalem." Where we stay is very close to where Hirsch Goldberg Poland's family lives. There's still posters of him all over. He was killed. So many soldiers from the neighborhood were killed. So I think people were very, very sensitive and it was very subdued. And I think if you listen to a lot of the hostages when they came back, every single one of them, after thanking Trump and Netanyahu and the people, they all say thank you to all of the soldiers for being such heroes and for sacrificing. And I think in general now, these past 2 years have been, like I said, even now about my town, they've been sad because I I like to I like to think that we can all get along, and I like to think that most people are good, and what we've seen a lot over the past 2 years does not show that. But I still maintain that if you put two people in a room together, you will probably be able to get along with them. You don't have to be best friends, but you can probably get along. And so that is still my hope that if we can kind of work much more on a one-to-one basis, we'll get to a point where we can live in peaceful coexistence.
Thank you so much for sharing all this with us.
Thank you.
And now I'm going to read questions that came in from the audience. And if anyone would like to raise their hand or ask, that's also a possibility. And you're welcome also to put questions in the chat. So the first question is from Dina. Did you arrange the chapters around the specific organs donated? And I guess if the answer is yes, then you can share a bit why you chose it that way.
Meaning meaning from the true story or just in general?
I think the chapters, that each chapter is an
Oh
organ.
yeah. So yeah, that was something where I had no idea what I was doing when I first started to write this book, but for some reason that was the first thing that was in my head is that's how the chapters are going to be. Because really, when you think about it, it's almost like the organ is the main character more than anything because that is what is happening in the book. So absolutely, that was the plan.
Thank you. Do you explain in the book, or would you like to explain now why and how Orthodox donations are not that common?
So I explain a little bit in the book. I think I even talk about Islam as well, how it is a shared sort of misconception of desecrating the body. People worry they're not going to be able to be buried properly. People worried, that they're not going to go to heaven. I mean, there's a lot of misconceptions like that. So I do try to talk about it a little, but I'm also not a rabbinic authority, so I didn't want to write too much about it. I would say I touch on it. And in all of these talks, I would say, if it's something that you're thinking about signing up to be an organ donor, then you should speak to whoever you speak to get your religious advice, not me.
Thank you. Is your book available in paperback yet? And is it in libraries? And is there a discussion guide available?
So yes and yes and yes. It's available in paperback and also as an ebook. It is in libraries, and if it's not in your library, from what I've heard, if you request it, if a library gets a certain number of requests, then they will purchase it. So it is in a lot of libraries, and on my website, which Dora hopefully can post the link to it, there's a whole section for book club discussion questions.
Great, thank you. And are you available for
I would
more
love
book
it.
talks?
I would
Okay.
love it. It's so much fun to me that these characters are real. And, that's one thing when I'm in Israel, sometimes I think I'm going to run into some of them. Like that's how real they are to me. And it's so silly because they're figments of my imagination, but that's actually how I feel. So when people want to talk about the book, it's very flattering and I would love to be a part of it.
Great, thank you. So we will, in tomorrow's follow-up email, we'll share Rebecca's email address and website. So those of you who want to be in touch with her or invite her for a book talk, you will be able to reach out. The next question, I'm just trying to read it properly. What do you think can be done practically beyond fostering individual friendships as much as possible to increase multicultural understanding?
I don't know. That's a great question. That's a great question. I don't know. I guess for my part, I would say read read things from the other side because even if they're not all true, there will be a grain of truth to them and it will let you in a little bit and maybe it will, I heard a really good talk from the British ambassador to Israel And he said, you need to find out if the person wants to have a conversation or not. And by having a conversation, you have to be open-minded, but it can't just be the person you're talking to, it has to be you as well. So I think I've been working within myself of realizing not everything I think is right. And so I need to be a little more open-minded to hearing about other people in the world. And maybe if I do that, then they will also be more open-minded to hearing about me.
Thank you. And I just want to read a comment that came to this question. Natalie says, spend time in neighborhoods different from your own, eat there, observe, talk to people. So it's a bit similar to what you're saying.
Yeah, very true.
But it's again exposure to other cultures, to other people. I guess that's always a good way to start.
Yeah.
So I don't see now more questions, but I do want to encourage people that if there was anything that you thought was interesting or intriguing or anything about what Rebecca said, you have questions about, please feel free to put it in the chat or raise your hand, or you can even just unmute and share and comment.
And
Dina, go
also, I
ahead.
don't know if anyone is interested, but I'm also happy to talk a little bit about the publishing process and how
Absolutely.
that changed dramatically after October 7th.
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
Oh, okay. Well, then thank you. So that gives me an opportunity. So, like I said, I started writing this book a while ago. It took me about 4 years to write, and I finished writing it in the summer of 2022. So I got myself ready to query an agent. To do that, you sort of write like a 3-page cover letter, and I started sending that out right after Labor Day. And I was lucky that it didn't take very long. And by December 2022, I had an agent from, a big literary agency, and she was so excited. We're going to have a great book and maybe even Netflix and maybe a movie, like so
Mhm.
positive and excited. So she wanted me to add about 30 pages to my last chapter about the boys in the hospital. And I said, okay, give me a few months. So basically, I finished that. And by Memorial Day 2023, she had her letter to submit to the publishers. The book was all done. We were all excited and ready to go. So she sent it out over the summer, a very soft launch, probably only to 7 or 8 publishers. And some of them, just said the usual, oh, this is so great, but I'm busier. I don't know how to market it. But others already started to show a little bit of how it was going to be tough for me. One person wrote back, I already have a book that takes place in Israel that's written by someone named Rebecca, so I'm not going to have another one. And someone said, I'm only going to publish, things from marginalized writers, etc. So I started to get a little nervous, but still she said, don't worry, it's the summer, it's slow, you'll see in the fall, we're going to make a push, it's going to be successful. And then literally on October 8th, 2023, she said, I'm not going to be able to sell this book. And that was really hard to hear because I was so excited and I had worked so hard. So she said, why don't we hold on to it for maybe 5 to 10 years and then we'll try again? And I
Oh,
said,
yeah.
I'm obviously not going to do that. But I don't know if you know how it works with an agent. They don't get paid unless you get published. And she sort of said, I'm not going to put work into this because I know it's not going to happen. And so I'm not going to try to sell it anymore. It's not going to sell. So it was really, really disheartening. But at that point, I was so done. And I was even more so like motivated that this book is important to be out in the world. And if I could even have one person read it and change that one person's mind, like it would be worth it for me. So I ended up finding a very small publisher, Arbitrary Press. I am only like the 10th book they've done. And it's been challenging. My publicity budget is about $10. And, he doesn't have a lot of outreach, but my book is out in the world. And so it's a hard time to be a Jewish writer. I don't know if I'm lucky or unlucky that I haven't been put on the Instagram account yet called Zionist Authors, which is something that a hateful person
Mhm.
wrote that you should, blacklist this person, review bomb them, don't buy their books. So part of me thinks, I guess it's good I'm not on it. And another part of me thinks, oh, I guess I'm not, my
Good
book
enough.
isn't famous enough yet, good enough, yes. But I will end it on a positive note because I genuinely do feel this. You can't change the haters, but you can build your community and it makes you feel amazing. And I will say the Jewish community has been so supportive. Any Jewish writer I've reached out to, cold call, cold email, how can I help you? What can I share with you? Dora and Sebastian here, same thing. Reached out, sure, let's talk. Everyone has been so supportive. And so at the end of the day, I hope my book gets out in the world more than just the Jewish community, but thankfully, we are the people of the book. And the Jewish community has been just so wonderful and amazing, and I'm very, very grateful for it.
May I say something about your
Yes, please.
publisher?
Yes.
Hi, Dora. I listen all the time. And midway through, I'm in Los Angeles. Midway through, I decided to order the book. So
Thank you.
So wait. So I went to a bookstore in Brentwood here near in Los Angeles. And they said, fine, sure, but you have to pay for it first. So I'm not used to that because I want to look at it and see if the print's too large, too small, too faint, whatever. And then I said to her, why is it that way? I've never paid ahead of time. I usually come in and it's ready. And she said, well, they're a small, independent little publishing company, and it's the way some people do it. It's the way they can afford to do it. So I called back and I said, sure, fine. I'll donate if I don't like it. I'll do something with it. So it's fun to hear that background you just gave.
Yeah, well, that was
amplify that you can order it. It's all around, but and it might take it's at a week to 10 days to get it.
right.
And it's nice to know if it's in the library. I really hadn't thought about that, but
It's in the library, and that's been a big negative of him, which is that, when a big publisher sells to Barnes and Noble or even maybe a small store in Brentwood, what happens is after a number of months, if the book doesn't sell, the publisher has to buy the book back, even if it's to destroy the book. And that's the way that,
really?
they don't, the bookstores don't lose money, don't lose so much money taking a chance on people. But my publisher said he didn't want to take the financial risk. And I said to him, I'll absorb the risk. I'll pay for it. Like it's every writer's dream to go into a bookstore and see your book in the window. And he just said no. So what can I do? It's a disappointment, but at least I have been able to walk into the library and see my book there. And there are a few independent bookstores that have been nice enough to take a chance. They don't have so many. Let's say they have 10 copies, but still they have 10 copies of my book there. And I appreciate it. But yes, I'm sorry you had to deal with it. And thanks for
I'm glad it makes it more personal. Seeing you learning about the publisher, that's fine. I'll like it. I'll give it as presents. I'll do something with it. But
thank you so much.
Glad to have
Glad that other Jewish authors are supportive because I'm on a lot of lists. And what I heard earlier is that unfortunately there are still there's a stigma against Jewish authors, Israeli films, which is really stupid. But so it's good to hear that you are getting support. And I am going to ask my library to request the book.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, everyone. Now, a few questions came in the chat, so I'll read those. Will the book be translated
it
to?
is on Amazon. Somebody wrote that.
Yeah, sorry. I'm gonna read now the questions that came in. Will the book be translated to Arabic or Hebrew?
Don't know the answer to either one of those. I would love it. I don't know. That's something actually that I am thinking of trying to make a little more of a push in Israel. I got very lucky, and there's a book actually coming out next week from Lihi Lapid, who is the wife of the former Prime Minister Yair Lapid. And I was lucky that I was asked to write a blurb on the back of her book. It's an amazing book. You guys should try to read that. But that has opened up a bit of a connection to me into Israeli publishing. And when she calms down from her book release, I was going to ask her if there's a way she can introduce me to someone to see if I can get it in Israel. So not soon, but I hope someday. The answer is yes.
Great, thank you. And I'll just read some comments that are very nice. So Natalie writes that I can see this as a Netflix short series.
Yeah.
And Susan shared, it's such a great book. I hope that as people who read it spread the word, it will keep reaching people and opening minds and hearts.
Thank you so much.
And Gabby writes, Rebecca, you are inspiring and the book sounds wonderful. Ordered it today and can't wait to read it and promote it to everyone I know. Yes. Is it available on Amazon?
Yes.
Okay.
Available on any online retailer, Walmart, Target, barnesandnoble.com, Amazon, any of those, you can get it.
Someone else shared that they already ordered the book. Yes. So I'm just checking.
Susan
Many
is
participants are saying that they are going to share the word and spread the word and share your book. Susan, go ahead. We cannot hear you right now. You need to unmute.
I forgot to unmute. I've been thinking, I sent a chat thing to you, Rebecca, just specifically to you. I went to Barnard ages ago, long before, maybe you weren't even born yet. I was there from 1965 to 69. Yes, 1968, in the midst of all that.
Wow.
And I have actually, when I was reading your bio, I thought, she went to Barnard. So I sent this information about your book to my class, a couple of my classmates who are also fantastic at spreading word and big book readers. But I was thinking, I think Barnard should be, you should get in touch with Barnard, or I should get in touch with Barnard.
So I did get in touch with them. They did buy a copy of my book for their library, and they did put me in their alumni magazine. I'm not sure if they're going to have me do a talk, especially right now. I think they're probably trying to avoid a lot of conversations on campus about Israel, but someday that might be really great.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to talk to the Barnard Club of Philadelphia, where I live.
That would be amazing.
Let's get this lady to do a talk, because the book sounds absolutely extraordinary, and everybody on earth should be concerned with and powerfully grabbed by the issue of organ donation. It's really my Pennsylvania non-driver's ID. I don't drive anymore. Does say organ donor. God forbid. I hope I don't have a motorcycle, so to speak. But the thing is, I was so fascinated by that aspect of it. I wasn't expecting that. I thought, oh, okay, she lives in Jerusalem. It's going to be about Jews and Arabs, and it's so much more than that. It's so much more. That's part of it, and of course, that's a deep, profound aspect. But I can't wait to get a copy and read it.
That's so nice. Thank you so much. That's very sweet.
I will get a hold of some people at Barnard and here in Philly and see if also the various Jewish museums, like the Jewish Heritage Museum in New York. I don't know if they get involved with things like this, or our Museum of American Jewish History here in Philadelphia.
It's a great idea.
Books. So, all right, I will start looking into things, and this
my new publicist, everyone.
Yeah, I feel like it's becoming a group effort to get Rebecca to the world.
Yes, and thank heaven for Qesher. I would never have known about this if not for Dora and Sebastian. So, well, I'm a retired journalist, so I feel that side of it too.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It looks like we've made some Qesher. We made some connections, so our job is done.
Yes.
Great. So, thank you so much, everyone. It's been so lovely to hear all these comments and thoughts and all the inspiration that you guys all brought to the table by how to spread more the word about this book. So, thank you, everyone, for your participation. I think I read Natalie, you can go ahead and unmute if you like.
Hey, Susan, could you mute yourself, please? Because we're talking to Rebecca.
I thought I did mute myself. I'm so sorry. I apologize.
Okay.
Oh, I
Natalie, go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to say that I think that the Brooklyn Public Library would be an ideal place because there's a lot of interest in cross-cultural understanding that they're trying to promote through various book talks and discussions. And I think that, even if people think that, parts of New York City are a hotbed for what they call it, visible dissidents, I think that actually the conversations that this book could get started would be really powerful. So I wanted to just suggest that. And also, I think
It's a great idea. Thank you.
and I think Queens, which I know less about the Queens Public Library, but being that Queens is also an extremely diverse borough, there would be an opportunity there too.
Yeah, those are great ideas. Thank you. I'm definitely going to look into that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And I'll read the last question for today, which is by Diane. And what is your next project?
Well, I'm working on two things right now. One of them is a short story about a 12-year-old girl who witnesses a murder, but from the 15th floor of her apartment building. So I like ambiguity, I guess. And so that's going to be just a short story. And then I'm working on a book that also is about terrorism, which I know sounds a little morbid, but I think because I believe that most people are good, I'm always fascinated when people do things that are so bad. And so hurting innocent people that you don't even know just really fascinates me. So it's a dual timeline story about a woman in the 1970s who's involved with someone who's in a terror cell, and then a modern day, present day woman who is researching the bombing of a plane that her fiance was on years ago. And that's all I can say right now. But hopefully it won't be 4 years this time. I think it will only be 2, but we will see.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us, and we wish you good luck with this project. And so we'll close for today. Thank you, everyone, so much for being here. And thank you, Rebecca, for sharing your book and your thoughts with us.
Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Dora and Sebastian. This was such a nice opportunity. It was great to meet you guys.
Great to meet you as well. And thank you, everyone, for being here. Tomorrow, we'll send out the recording and Rebecca's email address and website. So you can also order the book through there if you haven't done it yet by tomorrow. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of the day.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you again, Rebecca.
Bye.